Hello and welcome back to the Weekend Gardener. It's the 1st of January 2025 and my compost has finally dried out enough for me to be able to sow my seeds. So today I'm just going to be sowing onions. I've got several varieties that I've done. I've done most of them already. I've just got one left to do. So I'll show you my process and how I do it. It's not ideal because most of my equipment's at the allotment, but I'm having a couple of days off after the last week of moving those heavy concrete posts and gravel boards around. My body's feeling a little bit tired, so I'm just going to take it easy today, do a little bit of seed sowing and then put my feet up. So I'll show you my process. I'm sure you all know how to do it, but there may be some out there who don't, so I'll just do it. This is the way I do it. It's not the only way to do it, but this is what I'm going to be doing. So let's get started. So it's a pretty simple process for sowing onions. I'm just going to put the compost into the seed tray. I could fill it up to roughly 1 centimetre or 3/8 of an inch from the top. Try and get any lumps, little bits of twig. The compost I'm using is John Innes #1. And the only real reason for that is that's all they had in the garden centre. But I like to use a seed compost for when I'm starting seeds because it just makes it so much easier to pick out the young plants. So I'm just going to level that off. Squeeze out any air gaps. Make sure the seeds all get good contact with the compost. Once that's done, I'll just get out the onions. As I said, Elsa Craig. And I'm going to sow them in rows if possible. It's quite hard to pick up the black seeds on the dot compost, but it's just going to make it a little bit easier when they come to pricking out if they're in little rows and I've got a little bit of space around them so the roots don't get too tangled. They are still going to get tangled, but by using the seed compost it just makes it that little bit easier to separate everything. There we go, that should be enough. Put the seed packet back and then just sprinkle a fine layer of compost over the top. Again, picking out any seeds and bits. Just level it off. Fill in any gaps. And then gently firm it down. And there we go. I'm not going to water it because the compost is plenty moist enough. I'm going to pop the lid on, close the vents, and then I'll put them back onto the Super 7 and I'll show you what I've got. 2025 growing season has officially begun for me. I've got a tray of Elsa Craig onions. Quite a few people are growing those this year. I've grown them for the past 2 years and I've had good results with them. So I'm sticking to what I know. Some Red Brunswick. I've had limited success with red onions. I think the seeds seem to do better than the onion sets for bolting, but they're still not perfect. Bedfordshire Champion, I've grown those for the last couple of years. Done really well. Musselburgh leeks. Hopefully I'm going to get a little bit of a better season out of those than I did last year. And some of the Kelsey giant onions that Annie sent me. She sent me quite a lot, so I've given them to a few of the plot holders on my allotment site. So there'll be quite a few of us growing them this year. In a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to be starting off some aubergines because they take a long time to grow, and I've also got my Joe's Long cayenne chilies which have arrived yesterday. So again, I'll be getting those in next week or the week after. I don't need to put them in too early because once they get going they take up all the space. So with the onions and the leeks, once they've come through, I'm going to take the lids off and I'm going to take them up to the allotment and put them in the greenhouse so they get plenty of light. Hello and welcome back. It's currently 1 degree here in the UK. It's a little bit chilly, but I'm going to try and get the polytunnel sorted out today. I'm going to put the staging up so that when the seedlings start to come through I can move them on later in the season, and then I might spread a layer of compost over the top of the beds. That's all I really wanted to try and get done today. Some indoor jobs because it looks like it's about to rain or snow, one or the other, so I'm just going to hide away in the polytunnel and see what I can get done. Many of you have probably seen my staging that I use already, but I'll just talk you through it. It's just some old fence that I bought off a Facebook marketplace. Just put some P-clips to act as a hinge that I've attached to the tubing of the polytunnel, and then I just rotate it up and secure it to these posts to make sure it's level and flat. And I've got 3 sections that run down the entire length of the polytunnel. So when the seedlings start to come through and the weather warms up a little bit, I can just put them in here. It's easy to get to, and then when the growing season begins, I just fold them down out of the way like they are now, and we're good to go. All the staging is up and levelled off. As you can see, I've put a little extension on there with a piece of wire, and I've also put a piece of wire across the bottom here, and that is because I've come up with the idea of just creating sort of a tunnel within a tunnel using the bubble wrap that I took out of the greenhouse. I'm going to clean it off a little bit because it's got a little bit of dirt on it, but my thinking is if I run that all the way along, then when I drop the seedlings into the trays, it gives them that little bit more protection from the elements just when they're starting off, and then I can just take the wire down when it's no longer required. And it just gives them a little bit of frost protection. I've also got some polycarbonate that I can put along the base, which will seal it in even better. So I'm just going to get all that put into place, and then I'm going to call it a day. That's that little area completed. Managed to run it all the way across, and I've got a little bit of extra that I've just popped on the roof just to get it out of the way really. But hopefully that should just keep the temperature maybe 1 or 2 degrees warmer, keep the frost off, so when the seedlings do come down they've got a better chance. I didn't get time to do to put any compost on this beds because my hands are absolutely freezing, so I'm going to go home now. But it's another little job ticked off. Just put all my tools away and head off home. Good morning and welcome back. It's a Sunday morning. We've had a couple of inches of snow overnight, and it's still bitterly cold. I think it's around about 0, possibly 1 degree. Slightly warmer inside the polytunnel, but not much. Plan for today is just to get the compost onto the beds, and I'm going to call it a day. It's too cold to be hanging around, but I'm thinking moving compost, keep busy, I should keep warm. I might even see if I can get around to turning the compost heap, but we'll see how we go, see how cold I get. I've got a flask of tea and a positive attitude, so let's see what we can get done. Just giving the bed a quick tickle over with the hoe to get rid of any surface weeds, and now I'm going to start moving the compost in, and hopefully I should give it a good inch of coverage, and that should see me till next year. I've got some 6x concentrated farmyard manure as well. I might sprinkle a little bit of that on top, maybe some bloodfish and bone, just to put the nutrients back into the soil, ready for next year. one side of the polytunnel complete, ready for planting up in spring. Put a good inch to inch and a half layer over the top, and there was a lot of worms in the compost as I was pulling it out, so that's only going to be a benefit. So I'm just going to hoe over this side, level it off, and repeat the process. I've just raked and hoed over the second bed in the polytunnel, and the soil is so dry, there's absolutely no organic matter in it, it's just basically dust. So I think once I've spread the compost over the top, I'm going to give it a good soak in with super soil. Nick the gardener was kind enough to send me a small package at the end of last year, but I never got around to using it, so I think that's going to be ideal. I'm just going to pour it over the top of the compost to hopefully regenerate the soil, bring it back to life, and then next year we should have a nice harvest from there. So I'll get the compost on and I'll get the super soil mixed up, and then we can get this job put to bed. That's the beds finished. We've made some good progress this weekend. We've got the 2 beds inside the polytunnel covered over. I used 10 litres of water with the super soil, so that should be all good. Let that soak in now. We've also managed to do our small tunnel within the tunnel, and we've got our first lot of seeds sown. So that brings us to the end of another busy weekend. The weather hasn't stopped me from getting all the things done that I wanted to. I've got some seed sown, and I've sorted out the polytunnel beds and put up the staging ready for spring. So I'm happy with the progress I've made this weekend. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for watching, and if you're not subscribed, please consider doing so, and I shall see you all again next week. Thank you very much, and goodbye.